Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. On today's video, we're going to be taking a look at these 6 Atari 8-bit machines. These were all sent in by Stuart on a previous mail call episode a ways back. I just briefly looked at them on that video without even powering them on, and now that I just repaired my Atari 800, I think it's time to take a look at these machines and see which of them work and which don't. And if they don't work, maybe it's just a quick fix, or otherwise, it'll be a future troubleshooting video. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Now, from a machine standpoint, we have 2 Atari 400s. So these are the lowest cost machines that came out at the beginning when the 400 and 800 came out. I think these were $500, and the regular Atari 800 was $1,000. Now this is in $1979, so we're talking $1,000 is very expensive for the time, but being half the price, but still very capable, this was quite the bargain. And I think a lot of people ended up with these 400s just because they were still relatively powerful machines. Now, I said there were only 2 machines. Well, there's really actually 3, as you can obviously see here. But the difference is this one on the top has had its keyboard swapped out with one that replaces this terrible membrane keyboard. Well, I don't know how terrible it is, but to be honest, pushing on it feels pretty terrible. I've never actually used an original 400. Like I said, I've never turned these on. So I'll have to type a little bit on here and see how bad it is. But this keyboard doesn't feel great, but I think it probably feels a whole lot better than these to type on. And then over here is a stack of 3 machines. These 2 at the bottom are 800 XLs. I actually have another 800 XL that I've had for a long time as well. That machine just works. I've never actually had to do anything with it. So it's never really been featured on the channel before. So this is just 2 of those. And then on the top here is something that I had never even really seen or heard of that much. And this is an Atari 600 XL. So from my understanding, when Atari was looking to upgrade the 800 and the 400 line, they came out with the 600 and the 1200, with the 600 being the successor to the 400s and the 1200 being the successor to the 800. The 1200 is supposed to get a bunch of extra new features, but apparently it was a big flop and it caused a lot of incompatibility issues and whatnot from the original 800 and the 400, so people really didn't like it. The 800 XL was sort of the follow-up model to the 1200 XL. It was smaller, cheaper, more compatible, well, 100% compatible, I think, basically, had more RAM, so it was a little bit more capable, et cetera, et cetera. There were further machines that came out afterwards, like the 130XC, which I think looks like an Atari ST a little bit and has 128K of RAM. Now you'll notice I have a little TV set here, and that's because I really need to have an RF input, and that's because I think the 400s here only have RF, unless there's a composite mod, but the 800 on the other hand does have a DIN video output, but it only has composite video on it, and it doesn't have the Luma Chroma like S-Video type signal, which my little adapter cable that I use on 800 is for. So you do a simple mod to these to run an extra wire to the extra pin, and then you get the color output, which I have done on my own 800 XL. The 600 XL, when I was reading on Wikipedia, it said that it only had RF output except in Europe. Well, that doesn't really make sense because there's a monitor connector right there with a DIN plug in there. But I'm assuming that this is also going to have just composite video. And again, I don't have a composite video cable for the Ataris. I could just make one. I just haven't gotten around to it. So I'll just use channel 3 on this little TV here because that's the easiest thing to do. So let's clear this off and we'll start with, I guess, one of the 400s. We'll start with the oldest and we'll see what works and what doesn't. All right, here is the first Atari 400. And I gotta say, this machine is in perfect shape. It's totally mint. Could use a little bit of a clean, but other than that, it's looking really good. I guess there's a little bit of foam that was there in the lid here, and that has gone away, but it's looking okay otherwise. There's a nice close-up look at the glorious membrane type keyboard. It's not even tactile. It's not even like it gives you a click when you push down on it. It really is flat, like a microwave oven keyboard. The only thing it has going for it is there's a little bit of a tactile bump that surrounds each one of these keys with that white outline. So at least you can feel where the key is. But as for like typing properly on it, yeah, that's extremely miserable. The 400 does retain all 4 joystick inputs, which was also on the 800, so that's nice. The side of the machine has the SIO port, so that's for connecting disk drives and other peripherals, power switch, and an AC input, so it should be 9 volts AC. Notice on the back there is just a fixed cable here which has the RF output, and there is a toggle switch that allows you to select channel probably 2 or 3. Yes, someone wrote 2 and 3 with a pencil. On the bottom there is the serial number, and number 83 is at the plant number or something like that. And unlike some of those other machines which seem to have like a lot of loose parts in there, this thing doesn't have any loose parts at all, so I'm not even gonna open this up. We're just gonna power it up and see if it works. Okay, the little TV is sitting here, and I have the coax cable that a lovely viewer sent in. On the back, it's a F connector, which goes onto the back of the TV, and on this end is a regular RCA connector. Well, since this thing has a fixed cable on it, I'm going to use a coupler, totally not RF, you know, safe or compatible or whatever. So we can expect the image from this won't be great, but it's going to be good enough to know that it's working. All right, there it is. Okay, it must be set to channel 2. Oops, I only have channel 3 on this little TV. So we'll switch the toggle. There it is, it's working. Oh, notice opening this actually shut off the power. And there's a little peg right there that will do that. I've gone into my box of stuff, and there it is. There's the basic computer language, the CXL 4002. So we'll pop that into here like that. Close that. There it is, we got the ready prompt. I don't think the keyboard's working at all. I mean, not a single button is doing anything. How about reset? Nope. Option, nope. Wow, okay, so I don't know if that's a common problem with these 400 membranes where they don't work at all, but it feels like nothing is working. Let's turn this off and on. Let's just hear if we hear the sound. Yep, that clicking is normal as it boots into basic, but we don't have anybody home when it comes to keyboard. I guess I wasn't gonna open this, but I'm gonna open it now. It's funny that the 800, of course, had a keyboard problem, and that the very next computer that I tried also has a keyboard problem. Not surprised, I suppose. All right, there we go. The computer is open. Now, if you watched my 800 repair, it of course has this crazy die-cast metal RF shield around the whole thing, basically. This is just smaller and simpler because it doesn't have as many slots and whatnot. There is a speaker right here, which is very much just like on the other one, but there is the keyboard right there. And that all has me a little worried. Now, does this like lift out or is it screwed in? Seems to be screwed in. Okay, and it's a bit precarious. Take this out. You have to kind of flip the door open and then the top comes off, and take a look at that. The keyboard, it wasn't even connected, I don't think. Or if it was, I just pulled it out, but I really don't think I did. There's a couple stickers on there. It says amp, but luckily this ribbon cable here is actually in okay shape. I don't see any issues. And there are the innards of the 400. It's simpler than the 800, but it's still pretty complicated. And with this die-cast metal main chassis here, with the door and everything on here, it's just expensive to make. This thing has got to be expensive. The keyboard plugs in right here, so I'm gonna just hit a little Deoxit in there, and we're gonna stick that ribbon cable in there and see if we can get the keyboard working. The Deoxit just allows the ribbon cable to go in a little more easily. I don't want to flex it too much. And without too much trouble, you can actually remove the keyboard from the top cover, which I'm gonna do just for ease of use. All right, the keyboard is connected again, so I'm just gonna carefully lie that right here. And let's power this on. Now, of course, it's not gonna power on right away because the lid is open. So we'll just close the lid and I have to hold it. And let's see if we can type now. I can. So that cable was just disconnected. Well, that is certainly a very easy fix compared to the 800, which was quite the ordeal. Let's hit reset here. Actually resets the computer. Yeah, I think this is actually working fine. This keyboard looks like it's in good shape. I mean, for what it's worth. Whoops, that was my fault for letting go of the door a little bit. But yep, that seems to work. Sweet. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly reassemble this machine. All righty, it's back together. Let's turn this on. There we go. This is, oh, I forgot to put the speaker in. Okay, here we go again. All right, here we go again. I'll put the basic cartridge in. And we have the clicking as working. I'm just gonna quickly push every key, make sure they all work. And indeed, all the keys appear to work. The typing experience is, shall we say, horrible. And really the whole idea, I think, of this thing was very rudimentary typing, but mostly a games machine. And because it uses a cartridge slot, you could play any cartridge game without any problem. I'm going to connect up a joystick here. Let's pop out this basic cartridge and stick in the 1982 Pac-Man, which was a very good home computer port. And we hit start. There we have it. And it looks good, it sounds good. Oh yeah, this is a very, very good version of Pac-Man, for the time, of course. Come and get it. Anyhow, I think that pretty much confirms it that this machine is working perfectly. I have no idea why that keyboard was disconnected though. All it needed was a little bit of a reconnection and we're good to go, but maybe someone sabotaged this machine. Like they wanted it to look dead so that people wouldn't buy it or would go to the trash or something. You really have to wonder. All right, I'm gonna label these machines. So this one is gonna be number 1 and works perfect. All right, next up is the second Atari 400, the one that has the regular keyboard. Now, this one is not as good of a condition as the other one. It's pretty good, needs a little bit of a clean. It's got a little bit of yellowing, has something that says Ericsson School number 40 here. So a school had these, that's kind of cool. But there is a problem. There's something floating around in here. Okay, well, it's not doing it now, but a second ago, I swear I moved it and there was a big ka-chunk inside. So we're gonna open this thing up and see what's floating around in there. I'm wondering if it's the speaker, because if you didn't put that back in the right spot, then it kind of floats around. Also, someone had drilled a hole at some point in this thing here, and there's a sticker over it. What do you think that was all about there? I don't know. All right, on the back here, 400, there's a serial number. I don't know, there's some kind of a asset tag or something there, 06/09. I don't know what any of that means. Okay. Let me just lift this off like so. There's the speaker, and it was floating around in there, and it was disconnected as well. Also, the cable management on the RF cable, it's not done correctly on this machine. So I think that was also someone's doing. Maybe when they opened it up or whatever, they cut the zip tie right here. Let's take a look at the keyboard. It is definitely connected on this one. It is right there, you can see it, so we will not touch that. We'll just place this right down on the RF shield. And let's see if there's any cartridge in here. There is not. Plug in the power, close the lid, turn the power on. Wrong channel maybe. Why is it staticky sounding? Let's turn this off and on. I think the TV had just tuned to a slightly different frequency, so to turn it off and on, it got the tuners like locked on again. All right, well, this seems to be working. Let's type the keys or push the keys. Unlike the other one, this one does work. Dare I say, this keyboard actually works a little bit better than the other one. You don't have to push as hard. It's just you push very lightly and it registers a key press. Okay, so it seems like all the keys are working. Now the weird thing is there's definitely a problem with the RF frequency stuff, because changing the channel on this, we now have a little bit of audio static on here. Almost certainly there's gonna be an adjustment inside of this thing to kind of calibrate the audio and video frequency difference, and it's probably out of spec right now, which is why the audio is staticky. Let's put the Pac-Man cartridge in. I bet you we have sound, it's just that static is gonna be mixed in. I'm just gonna deoxit the cartridge socket first. Plug in the joystick. Video looks good though. Hit start. Okay, so the game started, but there's audio, but it's staticky. I hear it though, so the sound is definitely working. And this is definitely an RF problem. This is not a problem with the machine. Well, I mean, it is, but it's not a problem with the audio circuitry on this machine. This is definitely an issue with the RF modulator part of it. Let's try channel 2. Let's see if that works differently. I'll just have to type in 2 on here. Okay, better, but still not great. So there's the sound. All right, so this machine, which is gonna be number 2, it does work, but it has RF audio static. I will have to get back to this machine in the future. I'll have to go read up on how to make that adjustment. On the 64, it's pretty easy. Just pop the cover off. Inside, there's a little adjustment which adjusts the offset for the audio carrier. It's probably something very similar to this, and it must have drifted over time. I have the number 2 machine back together, and the speaker is placed in the correct spot. And I realize now on the other one, number 1, there was this metal plate that had fallen off. And what I thought was foam was obviously the double-sided adhesive tape that held this metal plate on. So to make a perfect Atari 400, I'll have to steal this door off this one and stick it on the other machine. In addition, actually, the DOM sticker here on the other one is a little messed up as well. So perhaps I will actually take the case and kind of mix and match to make one really good one. That'll be for a future video though. All right, we have machine number 3. This is the Atari 400 with the keyboard. Now this one has parts floating around inside. Sounds like maybe, well, I'm not sure. It's probably the speaker. Now that I know, that just sort of sits in place. Also, seems like the case is a bit broken on this one. Like there's screws on all 4 corners, and yet the case does not feel like it's attached. So perhaps this thing got dropped. And no, actually that screw there is a flat blade. So whoever opened this thing up must have lost the screws. This may end up being my parts Atari 400. Now it doesn't really even seem to want to, well, it doesn't really seem to want to come out. Okay, well, definitely the speaker. That was what's floating around, I think. There's a piece of plastic here. Where was this located? Ah, I can see right here. I think it came off there. Well, it's ABS plastic. I should be able to glue that back on. What is this? This is a piece of plastic as well that broke off something. There's a couple pieces there. Now, unlike the 800, this thing doesn't seem to have user accessible slots for expansion. There are actually slots inside of here as far as I'm aware. There's 2 slots. One that holds the RAM card, which I think is 16K or maybe 4 or something. Anyways, it's expandable. I think you can put the RAM cards from the 800 into here and get 16K, or there was a 32K card that was made, and not to mention lots of aftermarket cards, plus mods to add more memory to this thing, at least bring it up to 48K, which is the same as the 800. And it also has another slot in here in this die-cast cage here for the CPU and the graphics subsystem. Now, I wanted to see if the keyboard's connected, and it definitely is connected. Now, this keyboard, like I said, obviously this is some kind of aftermarket thing. It really doesn't feel very good, and sadly, it's missing the reset key. Now, you can push that, it still works, but it would be nice if I had the key to stick there. Now, I kind of remember when I got this machine, and I pointed out that key was missing, people sent me STL files. I could 3D print the replacement key, and I wouldn't say reset or whatever, but at least I could have a physical key there as opposed to just pushing on the key switch. But this thing seems okay otherwise, so let's try to situate this so we can give this thing a test. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, it goes without saying that there is no door on here, and you know, you can't even turn this thing on without pushing the little button. I do have the door. Here it is. Unfortunately, it suffered quite a bit of damage, and it's missing its little whatever, the little things that stick into the case here. Whoa! Oh, there went that shield that fell off on the other one. So you know what? Maybe I can use this and clean up the other one. Clean up the foam and stick it on. Anyhow, it looks like the little ears or the posts, they snapped off. They snapped clear off. I think they're in here. This was damage that was suffered during shipping. And there are the parts. There's the spring, and there are the little feet thing, or the ears, or whatever, the posts that stick in there. Now the problem is, of course, is that's probably a pretty high stress area, and maybe I can glue it together using acetone. It's a great glue for ABS, and I can make that thing work again. All right, it's connected up to the TV. Let's plug in the power to the side of this thing. I mean, judging by the fact that every other Atari so far has just worked, I'm kind of assuming that this one is just gonna work as well. So I'll put the door on here, power, toggle switch. Oh, it is not working. We have a fault. All right, okay, well, that means that's our first computer that we'll need to repair, but there we go. That does not look good. Pushing reset makes weird things happen. Let's try one more time. Nothing happened that time. Okay. just for fun, let's stick in a Defender cartridge. I really need to make like a diagnostic cartridge for this system. Now I have several other cartridges, game cartridges. Some of them don't work properly, which means I guess the EPROM is damaged or whatever. So I could maybe sacrifice those and turn those into diagnostic carts. All right, well that's not working either. Pushing reset gives us issues. All righty. Well, it could well have bad RAM, could have a bad CPU. I mean, there's all sorts of things that could be wrong with this thing, but we know that there is a problem with this machine. Well, if you're a regular viewer of my channel, you know that I'm gonna wanna at least fix the digital part of this thing, or at least figure out what is wrong with it. As I said earlier, I think this might be my parts machine as it is, although, you know, I could maybe transfer this keyboard off to one of the other 400s to have one that has that, because it's probably a kind of a cool, rare part. But as for the rest of the chips in there, well, anyways, I'll reserve the judgment on what to do with this machine till after the repair attempt. So there we have it, number 3, busted up case, garbled, no boot. All right, we're moving on to the modern era, the 600 XL. So from a keyboard perspective, not a great feeling keyboard. Better than my 800 XL, the one that I said it feels like typing into gel or whatever. Not great, and I think I hate about this keyboard is if you don't push the key right in the middle, you push over on the edge, it binds. And I hate keyboards that are like that, just horrible. Now these computers use an external 5-volt power supply because they did away with the 4116 DRAM that requires those extra voltage rails. So it uses a DIN connector, which is just 5 volts, even though it's got this crazy multi-pin connector there. So we're done using the brick that the 400 and 800 use. And we're gonna switch to this 5-volt power supply, which I made a long time ago, which has the DIN connector that gives the 5 volt that is needed. And I did this because that, again, that 800 XL that I got ages ago had no power supply. And I, of course, had to get creative on how to power it. And this was the easiest way. So we just put that in there. Unlike the other machine, this has an RCA jack for the RF, which I'm going to connect this cable directly to. And let's give this a power up. Okay, we're on the wrong channel. Let's try 3. We are not getting a valid signal. Well, we're getting something. Ah, okay, I just realized the TV doesn't have any channels in here, so I gotta type 3 manually. All right, there's 3, and we're still getting, looks like it's trying to make an image, but it's not quite working. Now remember early on I said that the NTSC ones shouldn't have a video out? Maybe this is actually a PAL machine, actually, because you know what I don't see is I do not see a channel 2-3 switch anywhere on here, and I'm assuming it would have that. All right, a quick Google. I wanted to see what is the composite pin, and look at that. It's exactly the same pinout as the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64, the old model of the 64. So I can use my VIC-20/C64 video cable to get video out on this thing. That's good to know. With that set to AV, let's turn this on. Now, if it is PAL, this TV does not support PAL. Oh, we're not getting anything. I mean, the power light's on, but that is nothing. And, oh, I'm on the audio jack. Well, that would explain that. Oh, look, this is a PAL machine. And I see the ready prompt there. Well, how interesting. And look, I'm typing and it's definitely showing up. And the cool thing about that is a lot of demos and stuff really don't work properly on NTSC machines, at least from my testing. And that means, well, if I upgrade the memory on this thing to 64K or more, or whatever, if that's even possible, then I will be able to at least run some of those. And of course, I can't use this little TV because, as you can see, it might be Philips branded, but it doesn't support PAL. It's rolling, and of course, it's not decoding the color, but the RetroTink can, so I'll switch over to this. All right, the RetroTink is up there. Let's turn this on. There it is. We got a working system, and it should be booting into BASIC. There it is. And this is, okay, so spacebar is not working. And let's see what else doesn't work. As far as I can tell, it's only the spacebar that is not working. I mean, not to mention the keyboard just feels like crap to type on, but that is not a problem with the membrane that's underneath. That is going to be the issue here with the spacebar. That's just a problem with the fact that it's dirty and it's a bad designed keyboard. What about these buttons on the side? Now, unlike the 800, where these side buttons actually go to the power board, these are just part of the same keyboard membrane as everything else. Why don't I power this off? And holding down Option on these later machines boots into a diagnostic here. You can let go of Option. And there it is. It's the self-test mode, memory, AV, keyboard, and all tests. You push select to pick which test you're going to run, and then you hit start to start. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. So the start button is also bad. So we can't even run the tests, which would allow us to hear the sound and test the rest of the keyboard and the memory. I don't even know how much memory the 600XL even has on it. Well, at least what we can do is try a game here. So let's put in Pac-Man. Okay, how about some Deoxit? Okay, try that again. Okay, there we go, Pac-Man. Wow, the colors are different. That is interesting. This Pac-Man's sort of like a skin color or an orange color, and it should be yellow. Let's hit the start button, which doesn't work, but luckily this game I can start by pushing a button on there. Okay, so the colors are weird, and also the game is very slow. And that's a very common problem that people in PAL regions will be familiar with. Nintendo games, Sega Genesis games, Master System games, if you were running the NTSC version, you got a much slower game because of course those games were designed to run at 60 Hertz, and we are only running at 50 now. So if you want a much easier Pac-Man, well, I guess this is one way to get it, but Pac-Man itself is kind of a orange color. Game does work, sound is working, so that kind of implies that this machine does work. Even though this is a cartridge game, it does still use RAM on the system. So you need to have working memory for the game to work, which is probably why on the last 400, we couldn't even boot a cartridge game. And there's no PLA type chip on the Ataris, like on the 64s, which go bad, which can cause your cartridge games not to work, but basic to work. And I just touched the cartridge, and that's what we got. I hit reset. How sensitive is that? Oh, very sensitive. So even the Deoxit in there, well, I only plugged it in once. Let's unplug and plug the cartridge a few times. Okay, how about now? How about now? It's still very sensitive. Doesn't even like getting touched. Well, that's interesting. All right, so there we go. We have machine number 4. It's PAL, it works, but it has a bad space bar and a start key. And of course, it's got a touchy, wow, my writing's bad, touchy cart slot. So I don't know if that's like a loose solder joint in there or what, but if people are familiar with that kind of thing, then definitely let me know in the comment section below. I am imagining that this can be modded to support S-video as well with an extra wire to the connector, right? Very similar to the 800XL, it needs that exact same modification. I forgot to mention that one of the differences on these later machines is it has this connector right here, which normally has a cover over it, and that is a parallel bus connector. Things like that. It has the address bus, the data bus, and other signals on there that would allow it to work as a normal expansion connector, like on those slots on the 800, for instance. I'm not sure how many products were released that actually use that port though, but the 800XL also has it. And speaking of the 800XL, here's an 800XL. Now this thing, right off the bat, has a broken keyboard stabilizer. Keyboard feels equivalently horrible. The font looks a little different on this than what I'm used to. And yes, it has a font and a keyboard layout that looks exactly like this. So notice the control key there looks a little different. Shift is bigger, the letters are smaller, font. Okay, so that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. All right, we also have an issue with this machine. It's got parts floating around inside. Now, there's that cover over the parallel connector that I mentioned. I'm noticing on the inside, there isn't even an RF shield in here, and I don't even know if that's standard or what. So of course, before turning this on, I just want to open it up and we'll investigate what exactly is floating around in there. Hopefully it's part of the space bar so I can fix that. Now I'm pretty sure I can't just yank the top cover off because it is connected to the motherboard. Yes, there it is. Holy dust bunnies, Batman. Check that out. That is a real dust bunny inside the computer. Now, I'm also not noticing a channel switch. So is this another PAL machine, possibly? As I mentioned earlier on with the 5-volt power supply, it just has normal 64K of DRAM there, although the top 16K is bank switched with the ROMs. It's nice that they're all in sockets, as are some of the other large ICs here, like the ROMs. And we can see that this keyboard obviously has some kind of key switches because we have a PCB here, which is not something I have ever seen before. Unfortunately though, it still connects with this really crappy ribbon cable, which may or may not be in good shape, but I guess we'll find out in a second. Now something was floating around in here, and what exactly was it? And it wasn't the dust bunny. Okay, so, all right, whatever it is, it's underneath the motherboard. Hopefully, like I said, it's part of the keyboard, so let's try to lift this up. How does this come up? I'm very hesitant to disconnect this connector here because I don't like those. I feel like it's gonna break. Okay, I could see it, whatever it is, it's right at the bottom there. Let's tilt this over. Okay, there it is. It is a stabilizer from the keyboard. How did it get under there? All right, let's put this back down on here. Now the problem is this looks way too small to be the spacebar stabilizer, which clearly is missing. So I guess the shift key, it lost its stabilizer. Yeah, this definitely has no stabilizer on it. I know I might be getting ahead of myself because I haven't even turned the computer on, but let's pop this shift key off. Ooh, it's so dirty inside. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right, well, it's definitely a stabilized shift key. And you know what? Okay, I can put this back together, so that's nice. So that just clips on like that. Now you can see the keyboard is filthy, filthy, filthy as well, just like the inside of the machine. So wherever this computer came from, yeah, this is gonna need a big time bath. Let's see if I can get this on here. Shift key is now stabilized again. That feels better. I'm gonna say that the spacebar appears to be installed backwards. So let's just see if we can pop this off. Oh, the stabilizer is just underneath there. And cool, nothing is broken on here. So that means that that can be fixed. There we go, a spacebar that now works wherever you push it. Now, like I said, I'm getting ahead of myself because this thing needs a massive cleaning. But that is pretty cool to have an 800XL that has a mechanical keyboard for what it's worth. It still feels like garbage because all that dust that was on the inside of the machine is inside the keyboard too. But at least there's no loose parts anymore. So let's plug in these cables here and let's test this thing out. Got a power LED, but we have nothing else. No one else is home. Now I'm using the VIC-20 cable, and as you can see there is a signal because the color bars go away, but that's it. Let's hold down the option key, see if that does anything different. Nope. And let's listen for the audio, the speaker. I don't even hear the clicking coming out of it. So, all right, something is clearly wrong with this machine, which will require a repair video. And again, I think this is a PAL computer just because there is a lack of channel switch on here. So all I can write about this machine is it's number 5, it's PAL, and it's black screen. And last but not least, the final 800XL. This one also has no channel selector switch, so I'm assuming that this is a PAL one as well. AT, and there's the serial number, 84, is that the date code or something? There's also loose stuff in here. Screws or dirt or mud or something. Keyboard is absolutely horrible. It feels really terrible. If you don't push perfectly in the middle, the keys bind super badly. Look at that. Oh, not good. Okay, so because there's loose parts inside, let's crack open the case. I can see this one has an RF shield on it, unlike the last one. And it looks like the shield is a little bit rusty on the underside. So let's crack this open. Oh, I'm noticing here, there's like a crack in the case right there. So this thing has obviously suffered a little bit of damage at some point. Alrighty, there it is. Whoa. Oh dear, oh dear. That, oh dear. What happened here? I'm gonna have to unplug the keyboard here, so let's do that. This machine is a mess inside. Take a look at that. Look at this. Look at this white powder here, but that's the RF shield that the other one should have had on it. And there's a piece of something that came out of the case, like a piece of concrete or something. It really seems like it's plaster or something that's inside of this machine. And how did it get in here? What's kind of funny is that the outside of the machine is not that dirty. The inside is far dirtier. All right, let's lift the cover on this shield here. Oh, the underside's not so bad. So yeah. That's going in the trash. So there's the inside of the machine. We got some more plaster right there. There's a little piece of a rock or something right here. There's a rock. Like, what exactly happened to this thing? Oh, how funny. Why don't I try to get this thing out of here? Now, I kind of remember that it's a bit of a pain to get these out because the way the connectors kind of slot into the case. You kind of have to bend a little bit. Come on, you're almost there. There we go. Okay, underside of the board, it looks fine. No rework that I can see. And there is the very rusty shield. And take a look at that. It's full of plaster. It's just sort of falling out of every part of this case. That is funny. Well, just because this thing has a ton of plaster on it, all over my bench too, I'm still gonna power this thing up right now. I mean, why not? It's not wet or anything. First, we're gonna give it the best possibility of working by putting Deoxit into the ports here. And I suppose on the power switch. I can't even get the connector in. I think that the connectors are clogged up with plaster. Why don't we do the old bang on here to see if we can get that out. In fact, I'm gonna try to flush the connector out with this stuff, this QD electric cleaner. I'll do it from the back side here. And the same for the power connector. How about now? Oh, look at that, the connector goes in. Okay, power switch is working. Well, I mean, it moves at least. Let's plug in the power here, 5 volts. Okay, it's kind of scratchy, sounds like dirt's inside of those. There's a click. Oh, look, it went into the RAM test or the ROM test. Now, that might be what happens when you don't have a keyboard connected. So that's a good sign. This machine is working. I can't even believe it. It may be filled with plaster and kind of left for dead, and I'm covered in plaster as well, but freaking works. Although, is this actually working? Shouldn't it be doing more than this? Let's turn this off and on again. Okay, so it did that, then that, and I thought it should go to the RAM test now. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. Well, I think what we are gonna do is I'm gonna spray out the connector here where the keyboard goes, just to kind of clean it out a little bit. And we're gonna reconnect that keyboard. Looks like there's one corroded pin here, nothing too serious though. Now these ribbon cables are scary because they can kind of start to disintegrate, and that's not a good thing. The sheer amount of plaster dust on the bench is hilarious. I'm just gonna push that back there so I can put the keyboard on its side here. I don't wanna try to scratch up the keyboard any worse than it is already. Okay, I got the keyboard reconnected, so let's turn this on now. Okay, it goes right into the self-test, which would imply, I don't think any of these keys even work. Because I don't know much about the Atari, I don't know if this is like normal behavior if there's a problem on the machine. Like, why doesn't it just go straight into basic or nothing? It goes right to that. Press reset or help to exit. When I push the help key, nothing. Push the reset key, nothing. Well, that could easily be the membrane that's on the back of this keyboard just not working. In fact, I can see the entire keyboard is quite bent in the middle here. So obviously at some point, heavy pressure was exerted onto it. But I'm noticing that it's a Matsumi keyboard, so it's the same crap as on the 800, and it's a good chance that every single key doesn't work on this thing. All right, I think that's it for the diagnostic on this machine. What I will do is I'm gonna go give this machine a really good clean, just because, well, at least the motherboard here, so that when it is time to do a repair on it, it won't be plaster everywhere. Ah, that's much better. This is nice and clean now. No more sand and plaster dust on it. And the same goes for this Atari 800XL. So the bottom I cleaned out, so that's pretty clean now. And take a look at the motherboard. Nothing that some soap, water, a little scrubbing action couldn't clean. This thing's looking much better now. Still a little bit of rust here and there, but that would, I could sand that off. I could use some what's that, metal polish, that would kind of clean that off if I really cared. But to be honest, that's not hurting anything. And the rest of this thing looks nice and clean on both sides. And there it is, back in the bottom case. I'm not gonna put this thing back together just so I can get a nice full dry on it. It's still a little damp. I blew off most of the water. But yeah, so when it's time to repair this board, it won't be dirty. And there we have it, number 6. It goes into the diagnostics without asking. Its keyboard seems to be bad, and of course, it is a PAL machine. And I'm noticing, looking at the top, there's a lot of plaster in the keyboard, so I should probably write in here, plaster. So there we have it, 6 8-bit Atari machines. In summary, this is the number 1 machine, works perfectly. This is the number 2 machine, also works perfectly. This is the number 3 machine, it has a garbled output, so we need to investigate that. This is the number 4 machine, the 610XL. It seems to work, except it has a bad spacebar and it has a bad start key. So I guess keyboard membrane problem. This is the number 5 machine, 800XL. It has a black screen, doesn't seem to do anything, except the power light does turn on, so we know it's getting power, but that is it. And then this is the number 6 machine. It is a PAL machine as well, and it turns on, it seems to be working, except it goes into diagnostics, it runs the ROM test, and then that is it. It doesn't seem to run the RAM test. So with that, I'm gonna end this video here. If you're watching and you happen to know a lot about these 8-bit machines, definitely leave me a hint down in the comment section below about what might be wrong with some of these, if you recognize the symptoms and whatnot. I'm especially curious about these bad keyboards on these 2 machines here, on what might be a way to fix those. Is it similar to what I had to do on my 800 with the Mitsumi keyboard and all of that annoyance? Or is there some easier way to fix those? Anyhow, I'd really like to thank my patrons. Their names are scrolling up the side of the screen. If you want to become a patron, you can do so at the link in the description below. And I also have a merch store, so you can pick up t-shirts or whatever with Adrian's Digital Basement and a couple other funny ones. And that is also at the link in the description below. And hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out the second channel if you haven't seen that already. Lots of mail call episodes over there, plus CRT repair videos and stuff like that. I also throw other random stuff onto the second channel sometimes, so you never know what you're gonna get over there. I mean, I guess you never know what you're gonna get on this main channel either. So anyhow, that's it. So thumbs up if you liked the video. If you didn't, you know what to do, subscribe, blah, 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 all the usual stuff. Thanks very much for watching. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.